Bhuta Tuya Smrita Shakti Rupaya Tatahina Valarohe Nishvadaha Sharja Bravat Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. The imperishable Shakti, whom the seers remember from lifetime to lifetime, and who is the indwelling power in all the slokas and sutras, the various revealed scriptures, who is the perfect I consciousness existing in all the multitude of words, whom without all the tattvas would be like clouds with no rain. She is the essence of non-duality. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. And she reveals Brahman. There shines Brahman. May Brahman protect us, may Brahman sustain us, and may Brahman reveal and illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Tat Sat. We have gathered here today for our second class in the series which I'm calling Bijas. That is basically B, J, Y, and S. The Bhakta, the Jnani, the yogi, and the Sannyasin. And just speaking a little bit before class, saying how, though last week we talked about the Bhaktas, that's rather easy. They have their own regiment of things, and based upon their devotion to the Lord, pujas, artis. Of course, they get in on mantra like everyone else. All the other three categories also are known for mantras, although the sannyasins prefer mahavakyas. They're qualified more for the mahavakyas, the great statements, rather than the mantras to Ishvara. Nonetheless, they're all shared by all the different kinds of beings and all the different yogas. So the bhaktas have their own regimen. We looked at that last week in terms of 5 types of sacrifice and the 9 aids to bhakti, if you remember, by Narada. And the other teachings like the 5 divine moods, the dasas, the Sakya dasa. Now you take one mood on if you're a bhakta and practice it your whole life. Have the Lord as your eternal companion, or have the Lord as your father or mother or child, or have the Lord as in the relationship as servant to the Lord. A lot of these are very good for, you might say, different kinds of egos that are in people, and different kinds of temperaments they have. Some of them, even amongst the bhaktas, probably leaning more towards dualism, and some of them leaning a little bit more towards qualified non-dualism. Some of them preferring God with form, some of them okay with outer devotions, but others not. Others prefer the inner devotions. Some have the Vaidya Bhakti, or what's it called? Gana Bhakti, that is the outer form of worship. Some have the Raja Bhakti going on, Raga Bhakti, they're going inside, their altar is inside, but nonetheless, it's all in the Bhakti realm, the devotions to God with form. So when you come to these other 3 categories that I've put out in the Bijas, Bhaktas, Gyanis, J, Y, Yogis, S, Sannyasins, The other three, they're a little bit difficult to make such distinctions between, because they're from the Jnani, whether the Jnani is a householder Jnani, as Krishna says, or a monastic or yogic kind of Jnani. Some of those don't marry and don't have houses. They're even cave dwellers, and that begins to get close to the idea of sannyasins who also like to wander and renounce house and home. Have thou no home, what home can hold thee, friend? The sky thy roof, the grass thy bed, and food what chance may bring, as Vivekananda described the sannyasin life in that beautiful poem of his. So since we've come today, the second class, more specifically to the Jnanis and the yogis, to kind of take them and somewhat lump them together, you're going to have to make the distinctions yourself in the mind, because again, temperament plays into it all. Some beings have are very studious and quiet and indrawn. Some Jnanis are teachers. They'll come out and share their wisdom, even become gurus. Yogis don't usually look at themselves as gurus. They're outside of society as far as the traditional way of looking at them. But again, Sri Krishna said there are these householder yogis, divine couples, Shiva and Shakti couples, like Agastya and Lopamudra and other great Shiva Shakti couples of the past in India, rishis and rishinis, the yogis and yoginis that may not have children, or they may have children, as Krishna says in the Gita, but nevertheless, some of them are more inwardly oriented, again, much like the Bhaktas, and some of them are more outgoing with their wisdom. They have a mission to spread the truth. And that's why Divine Mother has put in them these kinds of destinies or temperaments. And we did look at that last week in terms of the Bhaktas, but in terms of the Jnanis, it would be good then to make the bridge there. And we can do that using our guide chart for this on the 4 yogas. There's a traditional 4 yoga chart that's in the footfalls of the Rishi's book that we used to take up when we want to get a good review or remind ourselves of the great path of Chaturdasha Yoga, the 4 yogas. And then there's this new one. It's like number 300. So it's 381 of some 400 that I've created up to this date. And so I put this one out recently with the idea of, like the title, 4 yoga living, rather than just describing what the 4 yogas do or what they are, how people who are already living in the Purna Yoga, the synthesis of yoga it's called, or integral yoga it's been called by different teachers in more recent times, ever since Vivekananda brought it current for the first time, probably since the Bhagavad Gita, and Sri Krishna mentioned it. So he saw the onslaught of other yogas, a kind of strange distortion of Kriya Yoga that's going on today in some organizations that came from so-called gurus that came from India to the West, which departs really wickedly from Patanjali's Kriya Yoga, the original one, and Hatha Yoga, which has come and taken over the scene, and people are involving themselves in physical yoga only. It's okay for your physical health, but it's not good for a spiritual life. And other forms of yoga. Vivekananda was on the scene early, knowing that was coming to the Western culture. And that's why I said, as we said, we Vedantists have to, in every difficulty, think, why am I seeing it this way? Why can't I see it broader? Why can't I see it deeper? Why can't I spread myself into other self-disciplines rather than just one? Say, back to the boxes again with their 5 moods. Occasional remarkable soul as a bhakti would say, well, I think I want to practice 2 of those. I think I'll be the servant, but I'm also going to have look at myself as the son of or daughter of divine of the Lord. So there are some souls that cross those barriers, and this day and age in the West, with our intellectual acumen, which is really pretty broad for the time. Vivekananda said, that's why Vedanta is the best thing to bring West to America and to England, and that's going to appeal a lot to the Gyanis. We've seen, though, that when we present it to beings in the West who have been raised in Christianity, for instance, that there are bhaktas amongst people. There are a lot of people in the West who, even inside of Christianity, who went the Protestant way rather than the Catholic way. So again, you've got a kind of division of the mainstream of Christianity into a kind of bhakta and a kind of jnani, a person who liked ritual and everything to them was meaningless without ritual, and a person who did not like ritual at all and wanted to get beyond it and would go more towards the practical and the thinking kind of philosophy in their religion. In India, of course, the whole problem was transcended because philosophy was on equal footing with religion. And that's never been the case here. Philosophy has always been a secular subject with us in the West. It's not been a matter of practice. But in India, philosophy was all a matter of 6 darshanas, Vedanta, Yoga, Samkhya, Nyaya, which we were talking about yesterday at satsang. Nyaya, and these 6 darshanas were philosophy. If you look at each one of them, almost all of them require a practice and a deep study. So a deep study is what Jnana Yoga is about. The Bhakta will maybe have study of the Narada Sutras or Sandhuya's Bhakti Sutras, which are very Jnana-like, and they'll have some other scriptures that are more universal. And you can take the Bhagavad Gita, and whether you're a Bhakta or a Jnani, you're going to be pulling things out of that beautiful Prasthana Trayam example, the 3 great landmarks of scriptural history. I would say that probably you could do the same with a Bible. If you were a Jnani, so to speak, a studious person in Christianity, and say like Thomas Aquinas or that path of Christianity, or a Bhakta like St. Francis, that you'd take the Bible and you'd be extracting out of the Bible things that were pertinent to you as a Bhakta, or things that were pertinent to you as a Jnani. And in India, of course, this is not just something that is an occurrence along the way. It's how the whole thing started off. Was religion and philosophy were never sundered from one another, and one put in a school and one put in a private life, or one put in a church and one put in a college. That didn't happen in India. It was everyone's right and business and opportunity to enter into religion with a philosophical understanding, or to enter into philosophy with an open heart, if you want to put it that way. I'm a Bhakta, but I want to learn. And some of my own students of 30 years ago now came to me as Bhaktas, and now they're raging Jnanis, many of them. So they're beginning to synthesize the 4 yogas is kind of the point. And that's what we want to exemplify and share with everyone about SRV life, is that for these 30 or 40 years, we've been going on, even starting out with Janma music and all its various CDs back then, cassettes before then. And this is the latest sampler that we put out of 40 years of work in Janma music, of different kinds of pieces that Janma music put out. That was, you could say, oh, that's Bhakta. I said, well, no, I'm afraid the composer is going to disagree with you. And the founder of this organization is also going to disagree with you. Thank you. Is that those are devotional wisdom songs, is how our founder put it. You don't just sit and listen to them and kind of bliss out, pleasure for your ears. There's a message there. And the music is matured by a trained musician. That adds one facet. And then as well as that, you've got this profound message from India dovetailed into it. So there's the 2 wings of the word, where you have bhakti and jnanam happening in one particular method or mode of self-effort. See, that people can follow that and gain inspiration, whether they're bhaktas or jnanis. So that's kind of an example of what we're talking about when we talk about the import of the Chaturdasha yoga, the 4 yogas. And the one we're looking at today, that is the one who practices that's called the Jnani. And they're going by the wisdom road. And to us, that immediately includes Divine Mother. She brings in the Wisdom Mother, because as I just chanted out of the Tantra Sadbhava, Mantranam Jiva Bhuta Tuya Smrita Shakti Rapaya, they remember Smriti, they remember the Shakti over many lifetimes, because she's the one that gave them this wisdom, and they also are devoted to her. So, Tantra is very famous for devotion and has a strong element of bhakti in it, probably stronger element of bhakti in it, at least overtly, than Jnanam does. So we're talking about she's the presence in the multitude of words, and we even sometimes sing about that from India. Monopoli Bhajakali Icha Hoito Jayachari Guru Data Moha Mantra Divaneshi Apakori Monopoli Bhajakali. Which is also a music video on the web. You can look up this beautiful piece by Ram Prasad, one of his beautiful wisdom poem songs, devotional wisdom poem songs, where he talks about the Divine Mother and her great sword of wisdom and how she exists in the multitude of words. All sounds you hear are her natural mantras, one verse says, repeating spontaneously as the whole world worships her. And I would say knowingly or unknowingly. If you even worship an object, if you're, you say if you're a heathen or a pagan, which is kind of a negative connotation on those words sometimes amongst religionists, but basically they're worshiping an expression of God when they have an image. It's a difference between idolatry and worship of God with form. There's a vast difference in that. And the difference is going to be in the mind of the beholder, as they say. The beauty as well as the presence is going to be in the mind of the one who's doing the worshiping. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say that about the statue of Kali that he served as priest of Dakaneshwar temple for so long. Oh, that's not just made of cork and vermilion paint and wood and so forth and dressed up nicely with clothes. That's actually made of consciousness. So each one of those things on the form of the Divine Mother, if the form was considered sacred, then that becomes a conveyance. It becomes a vehicle for entering into a deep relationship with her. So the Bhakta will do that in that way, but it's not divorced of Jnanam, because you have to know about her in order to love her. And then when you love her, you want to know her deeper. So you have the 2 wings of the bird going on there. So it just occurs to me that these great teachings are there, and the great songs of India too. Every alphabet, the letters of every alphabet hold her presence. Each letter secretly bears the flower of her name. So that's why the divine names are there by the thousands. Sahasranam, you've got the priests sing these 1,000 named stotrams all day, every day, to her and to the Lord, to Ishvara. So have especially in Divine Mother realm, you've got the Sahasranams of Lakshmi and Saraswati and Durga and the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam. I've got an example of that in one of these charts, actually. So if we look at Jnana Yoga, then we want to face it off or compare it or contrast it with the Bhakta Yoga, we can go back to our main chart here. Remember that that these four yogas are uh, present, and the Divine Mother image here represents this very well. You can see on each of her hands, Bhakti, Raja, Karma, and Jnanam. That's devotion, wisdom, and then meditation, or the Raja Yoga system, and then Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. Very apropos that each one is placed. Karma is placed on her right hand. She's playing the instrument. That means we have to play the instruments given to us here. Our bodies are instruments, our senses are instruments, our interaction with the objects are instruments. It's all a kind of music that comes out of it, the music of life. And so that's karma yoga that we're engaged in while we're operating the instruments. This is why I just chanted basically that all the clouds are like without any rain. It's like the tattvas don't have anything in them if her presence isn't there, like a statue, like an image, like a murti. If you don't have the feeling that the divine consciousness is occupying that in probably more ways than one, that the materials to build the murti were done by conscious hands, conscious thought. It's one level, and then actually worshiping the murti, it becomes infused with your own consciousness, and maybe, just maybe, when you worship the Lord carefully, he or she will visit that image and emanate out of it. And this is why people will see some images coming alive, like Mother Mary to some people, or Sri Ramakrishna seeing Mother Kali come alive in his worship. And so there are different levels of manifestation of divinity that are coming through the image that you can set yourself up for. And we said last week too that you have to be, your heart has to be in it. Yes, your consciousness has to be invested in it in order to see this. Holy Mother used to say that when she worshipped the image of Sri Ramakrishna after he passed. She said, I'd offer food to him and would sit there for a little while, and I'd see a light come out of the picture, his eyes, and touch the food. And then she said, now I know it's ready to offer to the devotees because he's blessed it. See, so she was having this experience by worshiping his image every day. Probably the advantage she would have in that sense is that she loved him so much when he was living and looked upon him as a manifestation of the Lord, as avatar. So therefore, it wouldn't be hard to transfer that to an image. But if you've got an image that's thousands of years old or way off in the memory, a lot of people aren't worshiping it anymore, or a lot of religion has pulled the wool over the eyes of that kind of vision. It's become plodding and pedantic and doesn't live anymore. Then the image is not going to visit that place. And this is a truth that applies not only to the image, but to the location. Why some temples feel so charged with divine energy and some don't. And others, to make it more confusing, is that thousands of people go and worship at one temple, but the people that go there are so worldly minded that the image actually disappears. The consciousness disappears from the image and runs away to hide. I'm quoting Holy Mother in this. So sometimes the image the presence in the image goes away because so many people, worldly people, are coming before it. And they're coming before it without that adoration, without that pure devotion, without that pure mind. And there could be another place that nobody goes to, where the priest is very devout, making these offerings every day, and it's charged with spirituality, even no one's there. So those are all this inner secrets of worship, and also the inner secret to why some temples and locations are not considered sacred, do not feel sacred to you, even though others say they are. So the Jnanis, the Bhaktas, the yogis, I'd say the Bhaktas feel this, the Jnanis have learned this, and the yogis know this. So that's why they're not prone to be all reverent and respectful in a church or in a temple. See, he says, the presence isn't here, why should I bow down? See? Or maybe the presence has now gone inside, I think I'll bow to myself. Now you're talking about the Advaitist and the Sannyasin, right? I don't see any other God but myself, Vivekananda said, anymore. So when you have that non-dual realization, then what's out there has become in here, and what's out there and in here has become one. You've become one with that. I and my Father are one, like the great Mahavakyas. So let's look at that then. Jnani Yoga, in that the Jnani discriminates closely between Brahman and Maya. So that's, of course, the wheat from the chaff, and the power of viveka and vairagya to discriminate between what is changing and what's unchanging. When you start to strip away all the overlays of things based on the fact that it's changing, and you've watched it long enough to see it changes, then you'll come down to one thing that doesn't change. At some point, you'll probably say, well, that's the non-dual Brahman. That's the presence in everything. It's there every time I look inside. And then if I look deeper, I see, oh, it is myself. I and my Father are one. I can't see any distinctions anymore between it. Show me the line of demarcation where matter ends and spirit begins, Swami Brahmananda said. It's kind of a line out of the Ramakrishna order that's very beautiful. Show me the line of demarcation where matter ends and spirit begins, or spirit ends and matter begins. That line has been erased. Like Ramakrishna said, like a line drawn on water. It only lasts a few seconds and it's gone. But for the few seconds that it lasts, it seems like there's two bodies of water. But you look at it long enough, then you see that that's really an overlay. It's an illusion. It's a modification that's not real. And so that's what's meant here, these kinds of realizations, the difference between Brahman and Maya. The Jnani is quick on that. It's quick to see that. So we'll look at that in a little bit in terms of one of the charts. And then I mentioned it already, takes a Mahavakya from the Guru and realizes it. 4 great ones. Probably all of you could tell me what they are if I ask you. Do you know? I see some nodding heads. So what's one? Tattvamasi is a choice by one person here. Another one?
Pragyanam Brahman.
Pragyanam Brahman. Yes, Tattvamasi, that Brahman, thou art. So you can see how that just jumps straight to the secret of oneness. Pragyanam Brahman. Brahman is pure awareness. Pragya in that way, in that sense, means pure awareness, undivided, transcendent. And then you have Aham Brahmasmi, which is probably the most direct. I am Brahman. Comes as a great shock sometimes to people when that line of demarcation gets driven away, and they see no difference between this and that anymore. And so those Mahavakyas are something that we've often said they're really not like so much like mantras. We go back to the Bhakta, they take a mantra and they say it over and over again because devotion is their path, and they're really endearing themselves to the Ishtam. They're still laboring under a very strong distinction between what's God and themselves. And so that's dualism. I'm the servant of the Lord. I'm the son of the Lord or daughter of the Lord. That's two. You can't really deny it. And there's not a criticism toward that kind of two-ness either. It's a very ripe kind of bhakti that's going on in them. Nonetheless, it is two-ness. And you can see how it would differ from a Mahavakya, which like the sannyasins or the monks might take one of those. The other difference between mantra and Mahavakya is mantra is said thousands of times, repeated all the time. And Mahavakya, ideally once. That's when your teacher tells it to you and you repeat it, and that's all. Samadhi is gained. You're ready for it. You realize the innate oneness of everything. But then Maya might have its insinuating power that gets in once in a while and makes you doubt it or makes you think about it. At that point, you could say it again, maybe once a month, once a day even. But mantra goes on all the time. also a distinction between that is Mahavakya is really for the realization of the oneness between the apparently individualized self and the supreme self. Mantras for everyone. It's not just for you, it's for the good of the world. So you can't say a Mahavakya for the good of the world. They're not ready to come anywhere near it. They won't touch it with a stick, with a 10-foot pole. They're not ready to understand it. They can hear it, and that would be good. But the mantra is what they understand. That's why Jesus wasn't very popular, was he, when he came out, said, I and my Father are one. The Jews didn't like that, see. So you'd think the Jews, if Judaism were in its original state, that would be something they would love, because their religion is really very non-dual at its core. But at that time, when Jesus was walking the earth, no, he wasn't very popular with either the Jews or the Romans. And to come out and say something like that as a solution for everything is not going to be a working thing. It's not one of the teachings that anyone but the rare few, I mean the Jnani amongst the Christian, are going to appreciate. The Jnani would, amongst the Christian, would say, yeah, I've often wondered about that, but the religion's been telling me that's not true, so I haven't thought about it. But he's exemplifying it. He's shining with the light of coming out of the wilderness. I am the light of the worlds. He's telling me I and my Father are one. The Jnani amongst the Christians would go, maybe this is beyond conventional religion and beyond the ordinary mind. Maybe I need to contemplate this. There's a being who's qualified to say the Mahavakya. Maybe I'll start saying that. I and my Father are one. Maybe I'll remember that. See, so a little bit of discourse on how the Jnani would take a Mahavakya and realize it. That guru that he or she got the Mahavakya from is probably a Jnani or a yogi. The Bhaktas, wouldn't be giving out Mahavakyas again. They'd be giving out mantras. But remember, mantra is very, very good in the fact that it's for everyone too. When people first start to say the mantra, they think it's for themselves. Oh, this is going to purify my mind. This is going to get rid of my passions. This is going to free me from attachments, and so forth and so on. And so that's where they're thinking. This is going to make me fit to come into the company of the Lord, who is separate from me. You see, so I can come closer through this mantra. But as the mantra gets practiced, beings realize that this can be good for everyone. I should be saying my mantra for everyone. So you'll see some of these beings, like our founder, Lex Hixon, be saying the mantra all day. You see the Tibetan Buddhists muttering it all the time, and maybe they don't need it anymore for themselves. That is, they've already realized what they could get out of mantra, because Holy Mother said, she's Japahadini. They call Holy Mother Japahadini, perfect in mantra practice. Yet she herself said mantra is not the highest attainment. It helps you get ready for the highest attainment. So that's something we ought to look at, maybe from the standpoint of Jnanam. Is that maybe the practice of mantra is getting us ready to understand some great Mahavakyas that are the truth of the matter, or formlessness, which lies beyond all forms. Getting you ready to venture into the realm of formlessness and have your non-dual experiences, rather than just cycling on the wheel of name and form all the time, for instance. And also you have here in the third, contemplates the Atmagyan scriptures. So that's an important distinction. Again, a lot of people wouldn't be interested in, say, Avadhuta Gita or Ashtavakra Samhita, because it's not wet with bhakti. It's not dry either with dry knowledge. It's just very profound and very high-minded. So if you had a lot of karmas and samskaras or ways of thinking in the way of understanding non-duality, then there again, just like a Mahavakta, it wouldn't really be the best thing for you, for a person at that time, at that stage of their realization. But nonetheless, it could whet the appetite. Atmagyan scriptures, you'd have your first experience with them. Mine was at 20 years of age when I read the Vivekachudamani of Shankara. And I hadn't had a lot of training, but I knew truth when I heard it even then. And so I studied that and then went on and expanded that base into other great scriptures. One that even Sri Ramakrishna, although he wasn't into scriptures and books as much, of course, being beyond their ken and their reach, nonetheless, he really liked the Ashtavaraka Samhita and had Swami Vivekananda read it when he was young. That helped bring out that realization of non-duality in Narendra, that is in Swami Vivekananda. Achieves master, Jnana Yoga, the fourth one, is opens the central nadi from anahata to the agya. I want to go into that deeper. But let's finish this. Ripens Jnanam through recourse to Raja. So that's what we've always said. Jnana Yoga has become a perfect marriage with meditation. Raja Yoga basically, and its height means meditation. It's 8 limbs, so it has a lot to it, but it's the 7 limbs are all headed towards samadhi. And before that, meditation. So it's the yoga of meditation, sometimes called Dhyan Yoga. So we've often said to people who are of a more qualified nature in the West, that's a very nice hybrid. So if you could somehow make a hybrid out of the 2 wings of a bird, bhakti and jnanam, and then the jnanam could be another hybrid with meditation, then you're so well on the way towards mastering the 4 yogas, and so much benefit would come into your spiritual life. So many old karmas, samskaras, and unnecessary distinctions and modes of thinking would go away in the power of putting together those 3 yogas. Now you've only got karma yoga to deal with, which is, probably the yogi and the sannyasin are kind of, in most cases, beyond karma yoga. But the jnana and the bhakti are still dealing with them. We'll get to that. And then jnanam gets fulfilled and that's what I was just saying, through application to karma yoga. So if you become a realized jnani and then you want to share this with others, then you're going to have to deal with the karma of others. See, maybe your own karma has been expiated somewhat or greatly diminished, and you're not deluded at all anymore. You're not confused. You're not suffering. You're not, or put it this way, you are in the know of the ultimate oneness between the jiva and Shiva, between the Lord and the devotee. There's an ultimate oneness going on there. So at that point, then the jnani begins to use this wisdom that he has realized, or he or she has realized, to help others. And at that point, the collective karma is being encountered. Before it was my individual karma, then it became the karma of me and a few others near me. Now it's going to become myself as a jnani trying to rid the collective consciousness of karmas they don't need anymore. I mean, just look at Vivekananda and study his life if you want to understand that. There's so much here in the West that we didn't need to be carrying religiously, philosophically, and pseudo-spiritual, I'd say, because I don't think we really had spirituality given to us till he came, particularly in America. So there's just so much of a load on us, which if it remains in your mind, turns into suffering and misery and brooding and stress and all the things that people are complaining about, lack of peace of mind, no contentment in my life, and getting worse into depression and usage of intoxicants and dependence on things like that, that we're, back to the beginning of that story, is that none of that was necessary for us. We were laboring under it, and he was there on the scene as a Vijnani, not just a Jnani, but a knower of wisdom, with all the tools ready to help us, like these tools. I mean, there are not 4 of them here, but she has 8, 10, 12, 16 arms. You know what this means in India, is that all of these great tools, these yogis, this wisdom, this power, this Vijnanam is ready to be, if it's ready to be utilized by the aspirant, then they're going to become Purna yogis. They're going to become well-versed at all levels of yoga. I was thinking of a quote that's coming up. And then Jnanam gets sweetened through exposure to bhakti. So although there might be beings who are bhaktas and they will understand Jnanam later, there are also people who are Jnanis who will become bhaktas later. That is, they won't abandon their Jnanam to become bhaktas, but because of Jnanam, they'll realize the sweetness of bhakti and how it can be used to awaken others. And so they'll become exemplars of my teacher's illustration again, that I've said 3 times already today, the 2 wings of the bird, bhakti on one side, Jnanam on the other. And that's how the bird gets off the ground, spiritually speaking. So as of last time, we took Bhakti Yoga and went through the bullet points, and then I chose one of them and expanded on it some. Same here. I'm going to take this the one facet of the Jnana Yoga here, about open central nadi from the Anahata to the Agya. And look at that. So here is a chart that we can re-show. Remember this? We studied the Ksharika Upanishad. It's a very beautiful chart visually, but you can see here, the quotes that are at top and bottom from this Upanishad, section Upanishad. Using the sharp knife of wisdom, Jnanam, the way to liberation is opened. After successfully cutting away attachment to this world, the web of personal karma, the net of obsession with family and progeny, all the way inwards to the realm of the ancestors are to be severed by wielding the thunderbolt of Indra, quote unquote. That's that Vajra in India, as it were, lying within the spiritual centers of humanity. In this way are the 3 main nadis discovered. So we're talking about cutting, we won't go into it now with this, but I'm talking cutting away things that are at the feet, at the knees, at the thighs, and at the neck. Remember these different centers that are associated, that our body makes a good comparison with. Karmas at the feet, as I was just mentioning that, there's so many things in the West we don't need to be carrying, that a being like Vivekananda could just say, be done with it. Strike off thy fetters, bonds that bind thee down. So he was like immediately telling not only Americans, but Hindus, when they came up and said, oh, I wish I could be like you, Swamiji, but I have my karmas. And he would just say, blast your karmas. They're in your mind. So how about your mind just get rid of them? It took them on, it can get rid of them too, see? So he was always like shoring you up with the ability and the confidence to do this, because who else but you can do it? He used to say, none other than you. If you ever created this, then you're the one that can destroy this. If you have brought it into existence, you can do away with it. If not now, when? If not you, who? Was how he said it. So people would say, well, you're telling me practice can do that. I'll get to it soon. But if not now, when will you do it? If you don't, you're hearing me tell you this right now, then you should start doing it right now. I'm here amongst you. Do it. Don't wait. Maya's not going to wait. Death's not going to wait. Karma's not going to wait on you. They don't keep office hours. Holy Mother used to say, death and karma don't keep office hours. The door's always open for business with them. So if not now, when, and then followed up, if not you, who? Who else is going to help you with this? The guru can talk at you until they're blue in the face. That's how Vishnu turned that color. I like the joke. But you have to turn around and do it for yourself once you hear the truth. Thou shalt know the truth, and truth shall set you free. It's no different in India than it was in Judea back 2,000 years ago. So that's a great mantra for this day and age and for this particular teaching. If not now, when? If not you, who? So this is what he's saying here. Take up this thunderbolt of Indra, because why? Because how is it put there? Lying within the spiritual centers of humanity. That is such a beautiful way of saying it. They're in your own centers. You have to come to know this. Kingdoms of heaven are within you. See, it endears itself to you when you hear it that way. It's almost the Tibetan Buddhist kind of way of saying it, like we took up the Mahamudra a couple of weeks ago on retreat. So the way they put that into English from the Pali that turned into the Tibetan, that turned into now the English, has carried through in a very convincing way. These are lying in your own spiritual centers. If somebody came up and told you that, that would leave you no more doubt as to where you had to look for the truth. It's within you. It's not certainly outside of you. It's not in churches and temples. How did he say that? In books and temples, vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. Thus cease lament, let go thy hold, right? I mean, these are direct statements he's giving on scriptures like this that he knew, like the back of his hand, backward, forward, up, down, because he was a fully matured Vijnani. We're talking just about the Jnani right now, using him as the example. So in one quote, you can see how beautiful this is, but I'm only showing this chart really to show you these centers here, depicted in flowers, lotuses amongst the leaves. In order to illustrate this teaching here is that open the central nadi from anahata to the agya chakra. Anahata is what? Here. Agya is where? Here. All right. Who's here? I mean, who's here at the anahata in the context of my class today? The bhaktas. The bhaktas have arrived here. If they really love God sincerely, they've moved through the Rudra, the Vishnu Granthi that separates heart from rebirth, basically. Because when you get to the heart, no, rebirth can still happen, but not in ignorance anymore. So everyone below in the lower three centers, the three below the heart, are in this transmigration loop, right? So now you're hearing some real Jnanam here. But it's pertinent to the bhaktas, isn't it? Because they're being included at the heart level. But if you want to open with nadis, and this is where Jnana becomes very important, open the central nadi from the anahata to the agya, because there are three nadis in which you want to flow upon, right? This is Jnana. Whether it's given to the bhakta or it's given to the wisdom knower, it's very essential knowledge. So say in the West, there are very few of either. There are very few people, fewer and fewer that really love God anymore. And there are even fewer of that who know God or who have ever known God. So in America today, in this bubble called America, where there's some time, I've always thought of America as kind of a bubble. It's going to pop eventually. Big deal. Won't change Brahman at all, or it won't change your soul, your relationship with Brahman at all if you know yourself as Brahman. But until it pops, you've got this time in it to receive this Jnanam and assure yourself of your oneness with divine reality, with Divine Mother. She's already won the victory. her scripture says, don't worry about anything. Victory is already won. Now just follow through. One Swami told me once, I was having this powerful dream where I was running to try and catch Swami Vivekananda in my dream. He was walking away from me. I was running, trying to catch them. And all of a sudden I felt a hand on my shoulder. And I looked in my dream at Sri Ramakrishna. Said, don't worry, he's already done everything. That's what Sri Ramakrishna told him in his dream. He's already accomplished everything. Now just follow through. Keep running after him and help people on the way. My Holy Mother said, now that you've found Sri Ramakrishna, the matter's solved for you. You have to believe this. Belief has to turn into faith, and faith has to turn into realization. Mere belief isn't going to do it, but at least you have the words of others who are telling you that this is the truth. That's called Sravana. You've heard it in this lifetime. And so now, as she said, now that you've had seen Sri Ramakrishna, then go to him, but try and turn as you go and help others along the way. So this is this bubble I'm talking about. This is this time where the spinning pot that's been perfected still spins on the wheel, Prarabdha karma-like, and stops finally. It's that time that it's perfected and spinning, that's you now helping others with the truth. And there could be no better definition of that than the Jnani. That's why Krishna says at the end of the Gita, that one who teaches this wisdom to others, that's my best devotee. And so that it's also been said by others. So this needs to be shared. So my point here is that from the bhaktas are at the anahata chakra, they've arrived, they love God. If that love for God is colored yet by the world, they're falling again into the worlds. That's called rebirth. So there's a Vishnu Granti. Rudra Granti is much higher. There's a Brahma Granti at the base, and then there's Vishnu Granti here between the third chakra and the fourth chakra. It's a membrane, a subtle membrane that just bounces people back like an elastic band back to rebirth. So it's sort of like figures like the gates of heaven. You know, is Gabriel going to let you in? Are you pure enough to get in? Or he'll say, no, sorry. Hopefully you don't have to go to hell, but you'll have to go back to earth, right? But in our tradition, it's like, you know, your own sincerity will measure against that. Am I ready? It's really all up to you, not to some God at a gate, to penetrate through that. Have I made myself ready previous to my passing so that I can die consciously, so that I can go to the Lord? You'll have to be, even the bhakta is going to have to be 100% assured of this fact, like the followers of Jesus have been depicted, some of them. So this is the anahata, I'm saying, arrived there, but the quote here says, opening a channel from the anahata to the agya, that's the Jnani's business. See, that's what Jnanam does for you. This wisdom, if you're not reading the revealed scriptures, and many of the bhaktas aren't, it's not going to become tested by you. It might not even become heard by you yet. You just have your relationship with the Lord, and that's fine, and that's well and good, and I have my salvation. But if you want to get beyond heaven and beyond salvation and become free, as Jesus wanted you to be, because you don't want to, say, take 2,000 years to try and get free and dependence on a form, any kind of a form. You want to actually be one, be thee perfect as thy Father in heaven is perfect. You want to have that realization right away. And this is why Vivekananda was amongst us telling us this. If not now, when? If not you, who? You know, what are you waiting for? Kind of thing. It's not a hurry he's trying to get you in. There's enough hurry going on. You're going to have to become peaceful and quiet, slow down a little bit to affect this realization. But he does want you to be aware that, as I just, Holy Mother said, you know, time, karma, and death don't keep office hours. Maya can come along and just I mean, listening today to somebody taking care, 2 or 3 people take care of their mothers who all have dementia. They don't remember a thing in their old age. They're 80, they're 90, and they have dementia, right? So I have to take care of them. She doesn't even remember me, right? So, but other people have, my teacher got 90 years of age and more and remembered the whole Bhagavad Gita in English and in Sanskrit and could recite it at that age. So do you have to get dementia? Is it even necessary? Is it even a made-up disease, someone said? Or is it just an of addled pate kind of thing? You see, I didn't take care of my mind. My body's falling apart. My mind is now also falling apart. That is my brain. But smriti rupena ya krishnamitat vyapyastata jagat. Those who remember the mother, as I chanted at the beginning of this chant, at the beginning of this class, mantranam jiva bhuta tuya smrita shakti rupaya, the form of Shakti, they remember her, smrita, in their deepest meditations all their life. See? Mantranam jiva bhuta, every time they take a birth among the bhutas as a jiva, the first thing they remember is her, and they've done this for lifetimes. That's why my teacher at 90 years of age is in perfect knowledge of the Gita, you see. There's just no other reason for that, or no other way to explain it than that. And it can't be denied. So for the Jnani, then, it's like, I sure love you, Lord. Show me your deeper secrets. You know, awaken my center of speaking. See, you know, Sri Ramakrishna had that, because what did he say? He gave that story where, you know, the farmer's wife sits there bagging rice at the marketplace all day. Bags wife takes some money, bags rice, takes some money. And the pile behind her goes down. Then toward the afternoon, her husband comes from the field with another wagon full of rice and dumps it on that pile. So it's full again. That's how Sri Ramakrishna described the wisdom in him, all coming from the Divine Mother. And he said, she dwells in my throat. And when I speak, she pushes out grains of rice, as it were, wisdom. And it's endless. I open my mouth, she speaks. I open my mouth, she speaks. If you see one of the pictures from Ramakrishna, you can see her 2 eyes there. It's actually a famous picture of him where his two teeth are shining a little bit from the camera, you see from the picture. But it seems like there's a little being in there with 2 eyes looking out, like Mother Kali really is in his throat. And she was. And we just sang Saraswati, Mono Bali Bhajakali Ichahoy Toye Torje Achari. You know, that's this wisdom that's within everything. You should be able to see her as that. She's the wisdom mother. So for this reason, I just show or flash this chart on you. But as far as an explanation of the nadis, a couple of you have seen this, a couple of you haven't. This is one of these non-dual charts that I took to the retreat on the river a few weeks ago. And you see the beautiful title to it there is Opening Nadis to Non-Duality. So isn't that just what it said? You see, opens up central nadi from the anahata heart to the agya, third eye. Open those centers. So heart, the wisdom center, the non-dual center, these 3 chakras have to open up, leading to the sahasrara, or the 1,000-petaled lotus of full realization. So we didn't have a lot of time to do justice to this chart at the retreat because we had 4 others we were looking at. But you can see pretty easily what's meant by nadis when you see this form of this human head. And you can see all of these channels going through it. This is also a good illustration for the tree of yoga, which the eternal tree of yoga, it said here, is there. The roots are right there. at these chakras. You see, basically, you've been practicing yoga. That is hopefully the 4 yogas you've been practicing as we're teaching here. That has opened up these chakras more and more. Probably good to say it's opened up these nadis more and more. You have more access now, not only with your bhakti, which you've gleaned, you love the Lord, so you're protected as you practice this more austere path of the Jnanis, of the yogis, and then the sannyasins. The bhakta is becoming a Jnani, the bhakti is becoming a yogi, the bhakti is becoming a sannyasin, some of them. And so that means they're expanding their mind's capacity to know Brahman, right? Om apiyantu mamangani vak pranaschakshuru shrotamatra bam indriyani cha sarvani. All the beautiful peace chants of India have been evincing this when they've been chanted, realized and chanted by the rishis, who were bhaktas, yogis, and jnanis. Different temperaments there amongst the rishis. But the Upanishads pretty much show they had a great emphasis on jnanam, that they had opened up the Sushumna to such an extent that these other lotuses became revealed to them and available to them. Sri Ramakrishna actually described the experiences of these lotuses awakening when he touched them inside. So it's inner life for sure. They're not in the physical body. It's not something that, is going to be, they're not something that's going to awaken through intoxicants or through hatha yoga or things like that. That's imagination that's going on. But these are actual centers of consciousness that the mind's intelligence opens to and sees and then enters. Knock and it shall be entered is what Jesus said about those kinds of centers. And they don't stop with bhakti, and they're not just about bhakti. They extend deeper into, that's why the 4 yogas have been cited since Krishna's time as being this eternal path. Got the 2 eternal paths, I've got the 2 eternal genders, I've got the 2 path of light and dark, path of sun and moon, path of masculine and feminine. I've also got these 4 yogas I want to present to you. So Krishna is like laying out so much jnanam to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, all in the atmosphere of bhakta. But Arjuna's bhakta comes to the surface later. He realizes he loves Krishna, and that's because he's taken away his ignorance. If your ignorance isn't being taken away, then your love isn't that pure for the person you're with. Isn't that obvious here in the world? But if somebody starts to take away your ignorance and makes you feel blissful, that's all the more reason to really love them with a true love. That's incomparable love. That's, how they say it, unconditional love is one of the best expressions in English. There's no conditions around it, like Radha had for Krishna. So this is just explaining a little bit about this tree of yoga that might as well, the Sushumna, the Ida, and the Pingala might as well be a tree kind of form. Because if you were to see those 3 main nadis, central and the ones that are wrapping around it, and you were to see the hundreds and thousands of other nadis that are coming off those 3, it would look like a huge tree to you, full of light inside. And after you pass from the body, you'll be climbing it, as it were. I hope you're climbing it now while you're in the body and opening nadis that will take you beyond any kind of attachment or undue attraction to the world and nature and to people, as Swamiji just said for us, and will really make you a full knower of yourself and thereby everyone else, and thereby Brahman. From the individual to the collective to the cosmic, you'll know it all. And you'll know it all based upon her divine wisdom, which is eternal. So this illumined soul, this illumined head, this illumined mind, you can see in there, the nadis that are there are of remembrance of one's divine heritage first. I still think about people's strange belief that they were once monkeys, how science has us thinking, and how the earthbound souls have us thinking about being animals and so forth, when we're not even humans. So we're not bodies. If you accept the first 101 teaching of India that you're not the body, then you're not just saying, I'm not the human body. Aren't you also saying, I wasn't ever anybody? So how can you then believe that you were once a monkey or a paramecium or something? All of that is parinama. All of that's change, apparent change. I'm changeless. I may have witnessed all of that happening over billions of years, because a few billion years of science is nothing to the Mahayugas of India, which are billions and billions and billions and billions of cycles of years. What happened in that little tiny spectrum of time that we're so-called beginning to understand by digging in the earth and fossils and so forth, is nothing compared to this realization of the rishis that goes so far as to say, I was never a human. I was never an ego. I was never a brain. I was never a mind. I was never a physical thing. I was always the Atman. I am Brahman. A beautiful chant that we're all working on to memorize right now is that the English of it is, the foolish man thinks he's the body. The intellectual thinks he's a combination of body and brain. But the yogi says, I'm Brahman. How's that for a straight to the point shloka from the Upanishads for you? It just puts it all in perspective. So that I am Brahman person, we're beginning to look at in terms of the Jnani, the yogi, and the Sannyasin. So remember your divine heritage. Smriti rupena ya. Remember that who you are and that thou art that. If you put the Mahavakyas as a Jnani, put the Mahavakya in play, then they don't leave anything to chance or to doubt, do they? So opening the nadis plus having the Mahavakyas given to you by an illumined guru, what are you waiting for? If not now, when? So this is some of the more important nadis that I think people need to open up right now. That is, nadis are ways of thinking. They're channels that you drive into the mind. And they've been overgrown, like machete through bamboo. Come back if, later it's already beginning, the path you cut's already beginning to disappear. That's people's thinking. If they do something positive or something good, and they don't keep manning the possession of that territory that they just cut out for themselves, and they go off on a tangent or they stop and take too much of a rest, and that just closes up, like here in Hawaii. It just closes up in a matter of weeks, and you can barely see where anyone traced a path through it anymore. That's Sushumna to the chakras. There were times even in India where, until Mahachamasya came along, opened up the heart chakra again. So the upper chakras had been closed down to most beings. But he had a meditation one day where the heart chakra opened to him again. And then he could see these other lotuses on the tree of yoga. So like looking up, just to see something beautiful, looking in to see something spectacular in your own consciousness. These centers lie within you. They're your own centers, humanity's own centers of consciousness. So these four I've placed around this central point here that says, the flourishing nadis of cognizant insight. These are four that I think are pertinent right now for us. Nadis of awareness of the eternal moment. As long as you think in terms of time, so long will you be ignorant, my teacher used to say. Time and space are part of Maya, and you're putting them outside yourself, and you're believing that they have a separate existence from you, but they're your doing. Time and space are in your mind. Where's the time where the soul will come and go when all of time is in the soul. And space, where's the space to where it will go and come from when all the space is in the soul? So we put them all outside of ourselves, time and space, and we're believing in them. We put clocks on the wall and wear watches and so forth. You see, oh, now it's time. You see, well, as a matter of practicality, it's good, but for a matter of enlightenment, it's not. You have to be master of time. Trikaladarshi, Shiva is called, the master of the three phases of time. That is past, present, and future. And remember, the present is not the eternal moment. So you can't live in the present. That's just treading water to stay afloat. The eternal moment is one of the great secrets of the yogi, and there are 6 doorways to it. Now here we are back to Jnana. Right? I never heard that in any bhakti scripture or talked about by a bhakta. So this is where Jnana has its special place for all beings who love God and can begin to stretch the other wing so I can fly. It's about time for me to fly to these deeper centers. So awareness of the eternal moment, just hearing about it, makes you think about 3 phases of time and how people are caught on that illusion of time and the illusion of space. The kings of heaven are without. See, he didn't say that. The kings of heaven are outside of you. You know, scientists, the astronomers, and so forth are thinking about outside. He said the kings of heaven are within you. So everything that's outside came from what's inside. So that's just an example of what's in you when you're fascinated by the heavens. Those external heavens, it's just an outer example of where they came from. It's in you. If you want to explain it the way a Jnani would explain it, then you can do that way in Jnanam, in Indian Jnanam, in Vedic Jnanam, in yogic Jnanam, and philosophy. The other one is nadis of foresight and omniscience. That's another thing we need to open up to. To get beyond our limitations, we have to start thinking outside the box. And we were just saying that earlier in the class today, is that if you hear something, we should be able to, as Vedantas, even in difficulty, say, why am I seeing that? Why can't I just think beyond that? It's not that hard to think beyond that, especially if you have someone speaking it to you all the time and you're on the path. So it should be only a matter of time before these limitations start falling away, before the ego starts shrinking and leaves some room inside of you to hear these great truths and live by them. So that's called foresight and omniscience. It begins to become a channel, like all these nadis that are branches that are coming out of the tree. The 4th one is the nadis of past lives in time. So that's the 4th of these. I could have put many more, but not a lot of room there anyway. So best to put it in this way, is that these are the things right now, as we've looked at Swami Vivekananda being here since 1893 and SRV being in existence for the last 40 years or so, and helping to share Vedanta that he brought to us with others here in the West. These are some of the things that I'm seeing that I think we could begin to open channels to in a more positive and affirmed way. You know, this is the truth. This is what we're following. And we have to realize this, not just think about it. But first, think about it. Open an nadi to it. And that's what this chart's all about. You can see the subtitle, Eternal Life at the Upper Reaches of the Sushumna. That's one of my favorite subtitles that I've dawned upon these charts. It's just the upper reaches of the Sushumna inspire me when I hear those words. Talk about Mantranam Jiva Bhuta Shakti Rupaya. She gave me this beautiful way of saying what life is like at the upper levels, how people live there. Even here in the body, they're really living there. And that's what this is about for yoga living. This is how to get there, to that upper level of consciousness where others are there. I think I said that in satsang yesterday. Oh yeah, there's millions of souls, billions of souls on the wheel of samsara. Poor things. But aren't there thousands of souls who got illumined too? So let's focus on them as ways of getting free. See, so many thousands have gotten free, they say in the scriptures. So a few million and a few billion are suffering, you see, and they're on the wheel of samsara because they like it, basically. They like to suffer. Vivekananda said that once to Nivedita, I think. Oh, madam, you don't understand that there are many beings on earth who prefer to suffer. They prefer to suffer. So they like tussling with an object, trying to own it, getting disappointed by it, and suffering, and then complaining to others about it. It's kind of a mental hypochondria that's going on. It's some illness that we have. Oh, I tried that. It didn't work. Poor me. That's all the ego's doing. But what about just looking at the object and doing the real austerity to it? I renounce it. It has no control over me. And then as soon as you renounce it, oh, look at it, shining like Brahman. See, now I can love it. See, now I can own it. Now I can even possess it because I know it's not possible to possess it. And so this is for yoga living. See, this is how one yoga opens up nadis to another yoga that opens up more nadis to a higher yoga. And pretty soon the four are all fused into a great path that the avatar comes and says to you, oh Arjuna, I chanted it last week at the beginning of class. I chanted those slokas out of the Gita where Krishna is telling him about the four yogas and how to utilize them for your spiritual life. I will compare truth to a corrosive substance of infinite power, Vivekananda says. It burns its way in wherever it falls, in soft substance at once, hard granite slowly, but it must. So if you have heard the truth, and the truth will set you free, Jesus said. So this truth is the most corrosive substance in all the worlds, and it'll burn its way in the minute you hear it. So if not now, when? If not you, who? Becomes a little bit more urgent for us. Is that if I'm hearing this truth and I'm not transforming, my thinking is not changing, uh, my body is not experiencing better health, my senses are not keener and clearer and have power in them to renounce the objects, that's yoga. That's the first limits of yoga with the yamas and niyamas. If all of that is not happening to me, then it's time to take that mantra seriously. If not now, when? So it should be now. And if truth has already gotten into you, then that's got to be having its effect, whether you know it or not. It's beginning to eat through the barriers of ignorance or the veils of unknowing, the cloud of nescience that's inside the mind. And the Jnani is hot on the track of that, from the heart chakra to the Agya chakra. That's what they want to see completely dissolve, so they have the pure, clear vision of the truth at all times. This is like a great Mahavakya, a great saying, a great realization. And others amongst us in the world, like the Sufis, have nice ways of putting that too. This has always been one of my favorite sayings of the Sufis. When I reached inward to pluck the fruits of spiritual attainment from the spreading branches of intense self-effort and austere disciplines, I found that the entire tree existed within me. So talk about your fusing your practice with realization. That's the right attitude there, is that you may be the Lord and you may not have realized it fully, but as you, in the process of realizing it, you're doing this discipline to help you understand more and more that I and my Father are one, and be thee perfect as the Father in heaven is perfect. That's all the process of opening up these nadis. You could look at it from either side. You could look at it from the standpoint of there's coverings here, I have to remove them. Or you can look at it from the standpoint of the branches are already fully grown and I'm just not climbing them yet. You see, I just need to put forth more effort to climb them. They're already there. The victory's already won. So I'm saying either way, you could run these nadis into your mind if they're not there, or you could see that they're already there and climb them. You see, flow along them. It's like looking at a river and saying, you know, I can river raft that. I can boat that. I can inner tube that. We used to do that when we were young, just find a good river and just get on an inner tube and have someone drive us and just go for miles, for hours down a river on an inner tube. It's just, that's a nadi that you're exploring in spiritual life. And you should be able to look at that and say, I can do that. Maybe even I've done that before. I can do it again. I just need to remind myself. So a beautiful saying from the Sufis, reach inward to pluck the fruits of spiritual attainment from the spreading branches of intense self-effort and austere disciplines. So all of these disciplines I've been doing have been growing this tree in me, and the fruits have been ready, getting ready to pluck. And so now I'm thinking, oh, I see the tree now. I think I'll pluck them. And I reach out to pluck them, and I found out I'm not reaching out at all. I'm reaching in. That is the goal, the one who's seeking the goal, and the way to seek the goal were always within me. And I was misconceiving the fact that this was an outer journey. It was always an inner journey. So that's why I just quoted from Vivekananda. You know, where's the time when the soul will come and the time will depart, when all of time is in the soul. And so this is a fully blown Vijnani and a Sannyasin as well, who's coming up with beautiful English phrases like this that define the way that people have already awakened. These thousands of people that we talk about that have already gone to the goal in different religions too. And so again, this is opening a better nadi than, oh, there are billions of people suffering on the wheel of samsara. What can we do about that kind of thing? We need to know that there are thousands that have reached the goal, and that will shore up our faith, and it'll hone our methods so that we can go save those millions and billions of peoples like everyone from Sri Krishna to Swami Vivekananda has been doing for cycles of time. So with the time running out, and we can pick this up again next week as we segue from sannyas, from the Jnani into the yogi and Sannyasin. And like I say, there'll be some fusing here of those three because they're practicing many of the same methods. I think probably the main theme of today is that the Bhakta and Bhakti practices can be pretty well outlined. But when you get to the Jnani and how much the Jnani, the yogi, and the Sannyasin has used Jnanam in order to reach the high state that they're in. That is, they can call themselves a Sannyasin and a yogi or a Jnani because they have seen it, gleaned this wisdom, and they have been using it for lifetimes. What you see as other nadis coming out of these main four that I want everyone nowadays, particularly in the West, to think about, that is that your nature is divine, you have a divine heritage, and that you're living in an eternal moment, that time is flowing by you as in an illusory way, and that foresight and omniscience are yours to glean, to have, and that you've had past lifetimes in time that you can look back at and prove this to yourself. Krishna is telling Arjuna that in the Gita. I've had many lifetimes, Arjuna, so have you, but I remember all mine. I mean, it's so clear in the Gita. So Arjuna has to wake up and remember why he's a warrior, why he's why he's a good person. Also, why he's in such a mess at that time on the battlefield, because he doesn't want to be there. So, pro and con, good and bad, life and death, all of these things are available to you by opening a nadi to the fact that I've lived before. That's not just the deja vu thing we were talking about back in the 60s, was a little inkling of something, which was not a nadi at all. It's just a distant memory that we didn't even follow. But in the Gita, it's outlined. In the scriptures of India, it's outlined. And so this is a nadi, your mind, like dreams are nadis that you're following, dream channels, right? You get there through paths. Water flows through rivers, air current flows through atmospheres, clouds flow across skies, and things move through channels and directed by energy, by prana. But Shakti directs this. So take her as your highest guide and propitiate her, as we were saying yesterday at satsang so beautifully, some of those chants. And then move to these, with the Lady of the Six Lotuses, move with her as she opens up these levels. This class has been given to all of this Jnana Yoga, particularly focusing upon opening these nadis. As far as the rest of these up here, you can look back on this class when it gets posted. You can also approach me and so forth, but that's called the 20 Truths of Truth. Where else will you find that? In a book I wrote, I think it was probably my first real book, called The 24 Aspects of Mother Kali. Those are all listed in there, the 20 Truths of Truth. So I've taken them out of that book, put them here as nadis. Let's see. That is basically indivisible, full of grace, changeless, immediate, immeasurable, inconceivable, formless, incomparable, stainless. All these qualities of Brahman are, you reach Brahman by realizing these great paths, these great qualities. And remember, these are all in the great mind. And your mind has to connect to the great mind. The body and brain, let them befriend themselves, but get your mind, your consciousness, your intelligence in hand. Use her as your vehicle, Divine Mother, and open your mind, channels in your mind, channels of thought. Just like you would go out here and take a machete and clear out the weeds behind your house, get a path to the next field. Just think about that as a metaphor for opening up the mind to higher levels of awareness. We'll pick it up from here next week and look at the yogi and the Sannyasin to finish up this series. Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadguru Pado Padme Tvaye Shutva Pranamami Mahor Mahor Pranamami Mahor Mahor. O Ramakrishna, teacher of all, O Sharada, goddess divine, in bosom holding those lotus feet, salutations to both, ever be of mine. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.